Hi everyone, it's Elisa from Moonstruck Vintage. I'm here with you today, video 11 of my Behind the Business video series. I own a small vintage retail business in Cleveland, Ohio in the Little Italy neighborhood. And I'm just sharing some of my experiences, some of my processes, and etc. with you all through videos. So that's what this series is all about. And today I thought I'd come to you and talk a little bit about a question I get asked frequently. In fact, I was in an interview type setting this morning where I was asked this very question. How did your business begin? And how did it become what it is today? And then after this interview, I met up with one of my biz besties. Her name is Penny Casselman, and she's a high performance coach and a motivational speaker. I will link her channel below so you can check her out. She's really super great gal, lots of fun, and really very inspirational. So I was chatting with her, and she was talking to me about something she was working on, which is a vision board. And many of you probably know what that is. And for those who don't, it's simply a way to show in pictures on a board what your goals and dreams and hopes are. It's a tool that's used by a lot of people just to kind of visualize what your future will be or what you want your future to be. And she was talking to me about this brilliant idea she had where she thought instead of creating a board, she might create a journal, a vision journal with the same concept, but everything was in a book. So she could then page through it slowly and kind of noodle on all the things she had shown in the book. And then in the book, you can have pictures, but you could also, write your thoughts or quotes or that kind of thing. It's just another approach, but I think it's really cool. And it got me thinking that I've actually done that a couple of times in my life. Now, it's been a while since I did it, but I never called it a vision journal because, it was so long ago that concept was either non-existent or just beginning. And so I didn't have a word for it, but I knew that I wanted to, because I am a visual person, I wanted to represent my goals in a visual way, in a visual manner. So back in the day, I actually cut out pieces of pictures from magazines and things, put it in a book. And I did it twice in my past, once when I first bought my house, which was over 20 years ago, and then once for my business. So long before I had my business, I dreamed of having a business. So there's really two parts to the answer to this question. So the first part is I had to dream it. As part of the dreaming of it was the visualization of it. And the second part is planning and actually being proactive in making those dreams come true. And you do that through small steps, slowly building one step in front of the other. There's lots of ways to describe it, but you have to first imagine what it could be, and then you have to then put into place some sort of process or steps to get there. So if you can see behind me, there's a couple of stacks of journals. Some of them are calendars. And I've sort of been doing this all my life. And until Penny mentioned it this morning, I really wasn't thinking of it in those terms, but just the idea of putting down your thoughts in one place and being able to revisit that and imagine what it would be like, what it would feel like, what it would sound like, what it would smell like to actually finally, create the world that you had dreamed about. So I've been doing this a long time. I'm not a neat and tidy little journaler who journals every day and is really thoughtful about the books or the journals I choose or the calendars I choose. I'm a little chaotic in that regard, but I certainly have, I would say at this point, decades worth of thoughts and dreams and hopes and plans. So first step is, I'll just show you this quickly. This is an example. This is the journal I put together when I had bought my house. And what I did was I just had some really specific things that I wanted for my house. I mean, paint chips, furniture, little Haywood Wakefield, little mid-century modern, some really cool, like retro looking. It's actually the tile I put down in my kitchen. So each part of this book was created and represented a room in my house once I bought my house. I even have like, where is it? So I even have information about the plants I planted in my garden, because I put in lots of flower beds when I first moved in. So I used this book, and this is before anything was completed. So this is not a story of what happened. This is a story of what I wanted to happen. So each room had like a checklist of things. I wanted to refinish my hardwood floors. I wanted new awnings on my house. So there was a whole series of things. So over time, I kept this book, and sometimes years go by and then you go back and revisit and you think, oh, I've actually achieved, I would say, 99.9% of what I wrote down in this book. You can see some things are highlighted in yellow. That's when they were completed, and so on. So, I mean, I didn't start out to think of it as something I was manifesting or envisioning for myself, but it ended up being that. So there's something about writing it down or documenting it in whatever way you think is necessary that, it can actually, I think, bring those things to pass. So another example of that is this journal. As I mentioned, I've wanted a store for a long time, and I dreamed about that forever. And there was even a time when I had almost bought a building in a different part of Cleveland. And the building, my intention was to live upstairs and have a business downstairs. Well, that fell through. That didn't come to pass. It wasn't in Little Italy. It was in a different neighborhood. And I think just about weekly, I think about that and think about how I'm so relieved. I was so grateful that that did not come to pass, and I truly believe it was because I wasn't meant to be there. I was meant to be where I am right now. So whoever stepped in and decided to kind of end that, so I didn't make the wrong choice. And I just know with all my heart that I'm in the place I'm supposed to be. So I won't get into all the details of this book, but again, it was so far back. Like I was cutting pictures out of magazines, but what I was trying to show here was the feel and the vibe of what I wanted in my store. And I cut out a lot of things too. And in terms of words, and I included my photography in a lot of this because I was really much more into my photography. So, and I have pages, literally pages of written plans and dreams and hopes and who my ideal customer would be, and my perfect customer, and what I would do for marketing and market research. And so I had like this entire book that in this particular book, I didn't actually start documenting it until the first date in here is 2013, which I opened my store in 2014. So, but to keep a long story short, just about everything in this book has come to pass and beyond. So sometimes, we need to dream a bigger dream. So, but I really believe this would today be called a vision journal. And so with this, and it's just a practice I've done for years of my life. And here's another one. This was more on a personal level. you know, wanting to spend time with friends at a lake and gardening and having a puppy, all those things. So this one, you know, this was a little bit different, but same concept. I never got a puppy, but I had a kitty cat, so that was pretty close. so I have been doing this for a while. So I think you need to start here. And I think this is a brilliant way to kind of put your thoughts in one place. Like a journal is a perfect place to put them. And then you can actually, every once in a while, go through, flip through, and sometimes you might add and possibly even delete from that journal what your thoughts are. But the bottom line is, this is how it all started. I had a dream. I had a vision. I actually put that vision in a place, all in one place. And I kind of imagined what it would feel like to be in that type of business. And I wish I could say it was a more formalized process for me, and it wasn't. It was more about me kind of just having a crafty moment and taking the time to cut out some pictures and write some notes and just give it some thought. And I think that's probably most of the time where it all starts. So the second step in answering that question is, you know, you have a dream, but how do you make it come to pass? So the second part of that, and I won't go into it too deeply because, you know, there's whole books and video series and classes and probably college courses and college degrees on planning. Okay, so, but that is the second step. How do you make this come to pass? And, you know, from the very highest level, it's about having a big dream and then backing into it by creating smaller steps to get to that goal. So, you know, nobody became hugely successful overnight. Everybody takes the baby steps to get there. And just that feeling of, oh, okay, I accomplished one more baby step. And I really believe wholeheartedly that's how I came to this place in my business after 10 years. I mean, sometimes you have some setbacks and sometimes you go forward. It's just a matter of, you know, just keep going forward. So if you take a step backwards, take 2 steps forward. And these could be tiny steps, but so and this, I've always kept, you know, a manual journal. I also use, you know, a Google calendar for things, for tasks, and for important appointments. But I also keep, and this is last year's, I also keep a physical calendar. Each month is mapped out pretty specifically, starting with some monthly goals, personal and business, and then I just start to map them out throughout the month. One of the things Penny and I do together when we meet weekly is that we come up with 3 goals for the week. So, and we're really pretty good about it now. It took us a while to get to this point, but we're very thoughtful about the fact that we don't want to bite off more than we can chew. We want to make sure that they're achievable and trackable, that we can identify them and say when they're done and when they're not. And sometimes they carry over, and sometimes we do twice as many. Maybe we'll do 6 instead of 3. But the bottom line is, if you can just do those 3 for the week, and it's really nice to have an accountability partner to say, oh, well, gee, Penny, you said that you were going to do these 3 things, or gee, Lisa, why didn't you complete that one thing? What do you think your roadblock is? So, and these are really, again, this is very basic, but I really believe it's key. These are key steps that have allowed me to get to the place I am. And I have a long ways to go, but I feel like I've accomplished quite a bit by simply imagining where I'd like to be, and then breaking that down into smaller tasks and objectives and goals, and like just chunking away at those time after time. Another thing I do is at the end of each month, I will sit down and I actually document, again, personally and professionally, all the things that I've accomplished for that month. So, you know, it just allows me to be able to sit down and reflect on what I've accomplished, what I didn't accomplish, and then I'll move it over to the next month. And this is not about beating yourself up. It's just simply about, you know, making progress and just building momentum. So again, very simplistic. I mean, but I always like to look at a full month. And in this case, I did something a little different. So this one, I kind of created a board mapping out the last quarter of 2016. I still have that. This is what happens when you're a pack rat. You save everything. And I actually had certain things that I wanted to accomplish in the last quarter of that year. So I wrote them all down on a Post-it note, and then I was able to kind of move them around and identify where I could fit things in. Okay, so you know, you want to be careful and not overwhelm yourself. So however you do that, whether it's through some sort of visual way of doing it, a lot of people do it digitally, and that's cool too. I find that I need an actual hard copy of what I'm working on, and I think it's just helpful to me because that's the way I am reminded of certain things. I respond more to color and shape and form, light, and that kind of thing. So, but anyway, so yeah, so I have been doing this a little while for a variety of reasons, and I just find it effective. But when people ask me, you know, how did you get to where you are today? How did you decide to start your business? Well, I started with, you know, a dream journal. And then from there, I just created some plans. And I'm talking about the basics of basics, but, you know, that's kind of how I got to where I am now. Yeah, it was really great to have the opportunity to sit down and share a little bit about my business and have some, you know, folks who asked some really thoughtful questions, and then to follow up right after with meeting with Penny and talking about vision journals. And you know, nowadays there's so much visually out there in terms of the digital world, like Pinterest and Canva, and just going and scrolling, you know, Amazon or wherever. There's something really nice about having a physical embodiment of that, those goals, especially if you're a visual person. So that's why it works for me. So I think it's time for me to create a new vision journal. So I might be working on that soon. So anyway, that's that. That was just answering that question. I hope you found it of some interest. I will be sure to link Penny's channel below, so you should be sure to check her out. And her videos are always fun and enlightening. So, and she's a great friend. So I'm lucky to have her. I wish you all a very good week, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now.